Live from the booth at Pops, it's time for the Riverdale Review! Welcome back, pals, to another episode of the Riverdale Review, the Pals Network's weekly Riverdale review show. We're here. Oh, wait. No, that's how I do the show.
That's right. That's right.
It's been a while, man. Like we've been away for 3 weeks. I forgot. I was like, do I have like another intro bit here?
No.
We're just here. We're in the booth. We're hanging out. It's me and Marco. We're here to talk about Riverdale.
Yeah. I'm pumped for that.
I'm excited.
Cale couldn't join us, but who needs Cale?
Hot takes.
Throwing shade at Cale. Jesus.
You probably should have saved the shade for later in the show, considering he edits this. So if you really upset him, the show's not even going to come out.
That's fair. Love you.
So who needs Cale? The listeners need Cale to edit the show. So we're back after our break. We're excited to be back and talking about. This was one for the history books. I don't know if this is the best episode of Riverdale, but it's up there.
I'm calling it.
You think so?
I'm calling it. From like the first couple scenes, I was like, I like this one.
Yeah, so all right, spoiler free, right? That's where we're at right now.
Yep.
That's how we start the show. Riverdale Review, weekly Riverdale show. Subscribe, like, share on YouTube. Get us on your SoundClouds or your iTunes or your podcast services, all that jazz, right? Okay, cool. So, yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm hard pressed to think of a better episode than this one. Because, I remember there was a moment, it was right before, I think, the opening title sequence credit thing, And I was kind of like, man, this is going to have everything. This episode has everything that Riverdale promises on. There's, all these storylines that have been kind of percolating are finally coming together and coming to a head. There's sex, there's romance, there's drama, there's violence. It's what more could you ask for?
Literally,
there's mean parents.
It was the best. I posted on Twitter this morning after watching the episode. I was like, everything about this episode. It was spectacular. So much drama, and I was so here for it.
And I think something that I really appreciated about it too was it did a good job of something that I feel like Riverdale hasn't done in a long time, where we got payoff for a bunch of stories that had been kind of building for a while.
Yes.
But then we also got the establishment of new threads that were equally interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's been a while since we've kind of had an episode like that. I don't think I think we definitely on the last couple episodes have had a tendency to be I don't know, the season's been a little rough, but it was really just kind of a few episode patch, but when you're watching them week to week and evaluating them like we do, I definitely feel it hit a bump in the road. And I feel the last episode felt like we were getting back on track, but this was just all right, we're firing on all cylinders here. If we can keep this momentum going, we're going to have a good rest of the season too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Everything sort of culminated in this episode, I think. Like you said, all the loose threads that we've sort of had, and it paid off immensely. We'll get into it later, but I think where all the characters sort of stand, their relationships, what certain actions based off of previous, the previous direction that certain characters were heading, and how that's sort of affecting them in the future. This had everything. And I told you before the show, for me, the big sell was the direction and cinematography in this episode. It was just
they got some nice shots.
Yeah, it was just super smooth, and I'm pumped to talk about it.
Yeah, so let's use that as an opportunity to jump into the spoiler full section. So if you guys haven't seen chapter 27 of Riverdale, now's your chance to jump out. Remember, tune back in next week. You can hear our spoiler-free thoughts before you check out the episode, and then come back for the full discussion. Or if you've already checked out the episode, let's just jump right into it. So was there a specific standout moment for you in the cinematography that you wanted to touch on?
There was one moment. This was way at the beginning of the episode. I pulled it up on on the episode. It was actually at minute like 4 and 20 seconds. No, it's like, it was like right up where I was like, oh, this is going to be a good episode. I like the way that they're doing this, where it was an interaction between Kevin and Moose, and they were kind of like it was kind of like weird or whatever, between them, because obviously, Moose is still sort of, he's still like flirting with Kevin, even though he's with Midge, and like it's like he's closeted still, sort of. So, so there's just like this weird just relationship and tension there, and then Kevin walks away. The camera stays on Moose, and then Moose looks like he's about to walk away, but he walks into like another, like he turns the corner, and the camera goes from like a front shot to a like over the shoulder shot to then like it introduces the larger group with it. I don't know. It was very well done, very smooth. That's something that like, oh my God, was really popularized, like not popularized, but it was one of those little transition scenes, that's famous in like, the Seven Samurai, like old school cinema stuff. It's just like super, it was just very well done, where you can take the camera from one position to another and sort of get different views and perspectives. And so like that was super strong, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a good episode. Just in that little moment. Yeah.
Well, and I think just like the intro to this episode pulled me in a way that I don't think an episode has for a while, because like it did a really good job of, like, it was laying plot threads. Like, it wasn't like there was a ton of interesting stuff in the beginning of the episode, but it was just all this stuff of like, hey, here's what we're going and what we're going to be doing. And because of all the players and where they're at, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like we said, that there's kind of the culmination of a lot of storylines that have been like developing for a little while. Like there's the article that Jug, you know, had written about Hiram.
Yep.
You know, which kind of comes into things. Betty's having that, you know, the drama at home with, you know, obviously the kind of, you know, the murder, as it were, like laying on her, and, you know, the
Chick
kind
laying
of,
on her too.
Yeah, right. The
like
tension that she's
presence.
got with Chick. Right. Yeah. Right. And just like how he's getting kind of increasingly comfortable.
Yes.
There. And that's making her uncomfortable.
Right. It's just really cool. Like a really cool contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, then there's also, you know, the whole like Archie and Hiram thing, where there's like the mob family coming, and the, you know, kind of line between Archie and Hiram of communication that excludes Veronica.
Yes.
You know, and all of that finally comes to a head at the weekend away at Lodge.
Yep.
And like, obviously that itself was something that was going to make for good story. And then on top of that, there was the thing of like, okay, they're going to a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. It's like, there's going to be some sex and scandal. That's what's happening here. That's what we're doing. And damn, boy, did they deliver, man.
The entire morning, me watching it was me going, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it was really good.
It was really good. And speaking of good shots, man, like that lodge, like there was a couple shots they got there just in the wilderness where it's like they were just
even traveling there, like
yeah, it was just beautiful. Like it wasn't anything like, oh, it's this super like creative or inventive shot. It was just well composed, and the color was good, you know?
Yes.
And like the first shot of them like getting out of the car and walking up to the lodge, and like it has this very like, you know, classical kind of look to it, and, you know, like very rustic. And it was just gorgeous, you know? It's like, yeah, like what a getaway, right? Like
this was one of the episodes that definitely reminded me of like a Twin Peaks sort of thing, just because of like the scenery and where they were at and stuff.
Sure. Yeah, man. I mean, I think, I guess it must have been the second episode of Riverdale Review when we had Andy on. I remember he said, it's like, you know, some of the best directors in television work on Riverdale. So,
yeah, you
know, every once in a while you get an episode like this where you're just like, God damn, like
it's
they put a
nice
lot of effort
watch
into making this trashy teen show look excellent, you know? Love it. Yeah, so I mean, like, kind of like we get there, right? It's supposed to be this fun respite, and like, you know, Cheryl, of course, just had to be a catalyst for something.
I loved it.
her mother upsets her. She wants to like invite herself on the trip.
Mm-hmm.
She is uninvited by Veronica and decides to just drop a bomb on their whole weekend and reveal, to Jughead about the kiss that he's the only one who didn't know about.
Mm-hmm. Once they're there.
Yeah, once they're already there.
Yeah, like in there, they just settled in, and she rings Jug up and is just like, "Oh, hey, by the way, Betty and Archie kissed. Okay, bye."
Just wanted you to know.
Yeah, heads up.
Fuck you. So good. And like, I guess like I know normally we kind of try to take these in like chronological order, but like I'd like to jump around a little bit here because this kind of set up what was, what was going on with Cheryl, right? Like, there's all this tension with her mother, and in that opening scene, like she calls her an emotional anorexic. That she's never experienced love. She only knows how to destroy it. Then she gets, excluded from this couple's weekend. After she drops this bomb, like Tony comes into the bathroom where Cheryl had made the call, and like they kind of have a moment that I thought was really interesting, and then obviously becomes much more significant later on in the episode.
Yeah.
So my initial thought there, and we'll talk about that in a second, but I wanted to ask you, like, what was your initial read of that moment? Because like I know that we have kind of floated around the idea that Cheryl is gay. Right. Especially, like, Olivia kind of predicted that way back on, like, episode 3 or whatever.
Right.
But and then I know, obviously, there was that whole kind of subplot with Josie, but we never necessarily saw that kind of come to fruition. Like, it was very much an implied thing, and, like, we all seem to agree that that was the reading, but I could also see them not committing to that in the way that they did this episode.
Yes.
So, like, what was your read on that initial moment between Tony and Cheryl? Did you take it as that there was, like, not necessarily romantic, but, like, sexual tension there? That, like, Tony was reaching out to her in that way? Or was that not your read on it initially?
I didn't think that she was reaching out necessarily in that way. I think it was more like she might have recognized that there was like a potential, not necessarily like to insert herself in that, but that there was the potential that maybe like there was something just like deeper going on there. And then just from a viewer perspective, knowing what we do know and what's sort of been hinted at us, I sort of was just like, oh, okay, I guess they're like slowly trying to confirm that Cheryl is gay. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, like that's really cool. Like then we made it, we got a prediction, but also
we did.
But also like, I like the way that they're handling her character and the way it culminates. Again, because this is very much an episode of just like wrapping stuff up and introducing sort of essentially new characters, not new characters, but like refreshed and revamped.
Like new pairings, at least.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, we still have the classic pairings of like Varchi and Bughead, but like they're at odds now.
Yes.
Kind of, but then, so that's like a big thing this episode, right? Is friction between those two couples. But then, like you said, we've got new pairings of like Josie and Kevin and Tony and Cheryl. And that's good because it does breathe some life into the cast without having to introduce like new people necessarily. Right.
Yeah. And that's super refreshing. And I like the way that they've sort of made them their own characters. In the sense like they have their own storylines now adjacent to like Bughead and Varchi, right? Like they have their own. They have their own narratives now, and that's really, really cool because it's just fleshing out the world. And I think this season they became like full cast, right? Like they're billed up front.
Specifically, Josie and Kevin did. Yeah.
Okay.
Cheryl was already part of the main cast.
Gotcha. Okay, but like they're like really living up to that now, and they're really giving them that room, which is really cool to see explore.
Yeah, and I feel like that hasn't been the case this whole season. Like, I feel like we've gotten that here and there. Like, Josie, I think definitely. Josie and Kevin both kind of had their own episode. But overall, they've kind of been, I feel like, a little squished underneath everybody else's stuff. Yeah. And I think having this kind of two like two or three stories that are really two pairings. You know, like there's what's going on at the cabin and what's going on in Riverdale.
Yes.
And because it's broken up that way, it allowed those characters to have a little bit more breathing room. And then, you know, the inclusion of Tony in that as well, I think also helps because we do have characters like her and I guess to a lesser extent, Sweet Pea, right? And I guess even Fangs, who are, I think, pieces on the board that we haven't really spent a lot of time with. And like, I feel like characters like Moose and Midge, I don't think are ever going to be like main characters. I think Tony is going to be.
Yeah.
You know, I think Sweet Pea is going to be. So it's cool to see that kind of finally coming to fruition a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
So to keep on the thread of what's going on with Cheryl and Tony before we jump around to what else was going on, I have to say, like, it was really refreshing for me to, because it's not the only time I've ever felt sympathy for Cheryl, but I don't feel like she's ever really been allowed to have not very many moments that were like sweet, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think that moment where, you know, Tony approaches her at the theater and like, you know, kind of like puts her hand out again, right? And it's just like, hey, like, you know, if you want to like see the movie together, like that's cool, no pressure. Like, and it definitely seems like she's obviously like interested in her, but like, I don't know that it's like romantic because I feel like when we do get that reveal later on that Cheryl is gay, like I feel like Tony kind of like seems surprised by it.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think she's approaching it from like like any. It's not like a sexual approach or like a romantic approach. It's like she like actually is trying to care.
Yeah, it seems like she like admires her, you know, like and not like not in like a, you know, like I look up to you kind of way. Like that's, I know sometimes people use the word that way, but I mean like, you know, just when someone is like, you know, she says that like she calls her like exceptional or something like that, right? When they're talking at Pops. And like I wonder if it's more just like her, you know, being like, you know, obviously there is like pain underneath the surface with Cheryl and like she like is trying to make a genuine connection with her. And that was surprising to me, you know, that she would make that effort. But I have to say, I thought it was really sweet, you know, like I really liked their chemistry together. And that's not a thing I ever like really thought about. I feel like we may have like tossed that around in a previous episode once because we had said we thought Cheryl was gay and Tony's gay. So, right. You know, because I remember we were like, well, Josie's not gay. So like, that's probably not going to happen. So like, who else even is there? Maybe Tony.
Right. And it was like offhand even, that comment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we were like, oh, it'd be like a cute like Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. But like, and now it's like, oh, like this really might actually like go somewhere. And I think that there's really like going to be some meat on this bone because I thought it was really cool where, you know, we see Cheryl obviously having this emotional reaction to this film that's about a kid coming out.
Yes.
And to me, again, was another signifier of, yes, Cheryl's definitely gay. We're supposed to think that now. When they actually have that moment, though, at Pops, that was really like, it was cool to like get the story. Yeah, you know? To like hear the whole thing about her having this relationship, you know, this budding relationship, I guess, with her best friend who, you know,
Heather.
Yeah, Heather, who she had a romantic relationship with, and you know, her mother.
So like, sorry to cut you off.
No.
So like my understanding was like it hadn't gotten to that point yet. Like sure that they had found her in the same bed, but it was my understanding that there were still, I think, middle school girls and like that, like potentially nothing necessarily happened, but it was just that she, like, her mother caught them in bed and it was just like, oh, like kind of weird for her.
So, and I, you know, I don't know, right? So like that's definitely a possible interpretation. But to me, like, I read it as being like she caught us in bed together. Like, I don't think that means that they were like having sex.
Mm-hmm. But there was like...
But maybe they were like kissing or something like that, you know, like that they were exploring.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't think there's anything weird about two young girls who are best friends who have sleepovers every weekend sleeping in the same bed together.
Yeah.
Like, that is pretty commonplace. And I don't think that that Miss Blossom would, like, overreact to that. I think that was more Cheryl saying it that way because she was, like, uncomfortable saying, like, she caught us doing this. Right? Like, you don't need to know what we were doing. We were caught together, you know, in quotes.
Okay.
And, you know, and I agree with you that, like, they were young, but I think it was more like a thing of, like, they were best friends and they realized that there was, you know,
tension
more
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that they were exploring that how kids do, you know, and that they got caught.
Yeah. And in that moment, it was like very, at least for me, it was like very, you caught her in a very, oh my God, what's the word? Not innocent.
Like vulnerable.
Vulnerable. Oh my God. Thank you.
Yeah.
Vulnerable state. And that's a Cheryl that is very like, super interesting. And,
'cause that's not her. We never see her that way.
Right. And to just see her that open and that, yeah, it was just, it was very, very like refreshing. And it was a really cool step that I felt the show made. Yeah, I mean, it was really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this storyline. I'm really excited to see where this goes and what this means for Cheryl as a character, because I think it's going to force her to evolve.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to... You can't have Cheryl, like, have a storyline that's about her becoming more emotionally honest and coming out and, you know... shedding the facade, you know, the armor that she has put up for herself as this cold, mean person without making her change. Like, she has to stop being those things. Yeah. Which will mean that she won't be allowed to fall into the same habits, you know? And I think that's going to force her to kind of make like a face turn, you know, a little bit. And I think that's going to be really refreshing.
Yeah.
You know, and it'll be fun to see her interact with the main cast in a way that's less combative.
Definitely.
So I'm excited to see where that goes. We'll get back to what was going down at the Lodge.
Whole lot of squeaking.
I think that actually one of my favorite bits, like my favorite moment, it was like that thing of after Cheryl drops the bomb, they're going to their rooms to like unpack and have these awkward conversations, you know, and like Veronica and Archie like start having sex, and then Jughead and Betty are just like, or Jughead goes, he's like, can't they ever just have a conversation?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's like, is this their reaction to everything?
Yeah.
And like that killed me. And like obviously later on, they're on the other side of that fence or of the wall, right? And and I thought that was really funny too, because I didn't realize until the next morning, but it's like, oh wow, like they didn't know that they had sex. Like Veronica and Archie didn't know that Jughead and Betty had sex before.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
so, like, Veronica brings it up and she's like, when did that happen?
Right.
And it's so like I don't know, it was fun to like have some of that kind of like more like a lighthearted humor, because I feel like it's been a while since we've had something like that on Riverdale.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is cool too, because like that's the thing I liked about this episode is like there's a little bit of everything. Like there was some like interpersonal drama, there was some humor, and then there was some like real drama. You know, like the real shit,
the juicy stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of the juicy stuff, though, so like let's talk about Vughead.
Ooh,
Marco.
Oh, my dream.
My dream. Oh man, so what did you think about that?
Oh, I loved it, dude. Oh my god.
So awkward.
It wasn't even awkward for me. It was just like I was like, there.
Yes.
I was there at the edge of my seat, like gripping the pillow. I'm just like, do it. Oh my God, do it. Oh my God, it's happening. It was so, all right. So
Marcus just screen capping endlessly.
Yeah, honestly, all caps. It was the best thing. But again, man, the way this show approaches interpersonal relationships and stuff is just beyond me. It's like what? It's like, I'm an adult, right? But I don't do these things, right? And so, yeah, the before and the after of it, the way it's dealt with, again, kudos to the show, and it's well executed maturity. But yeah, man, after Cheryl drops the bomb, Veronica's just like, hey, Jughead, maybe we should kiss. And
it's like, that'll fix everything, right?
Yeah, and then me going, yeah, that'll fix everything. Yeah, do it. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, 100%. It's gonna fix everything. That's a Band-Aid, of course. Do it, 100%. Go for it. I'm there.
Do it. It felt so weird because, like, I don't know, like, just like the conversation that like Betty and Jug have, where he's like, "I'm not like mad about it. It's fine." And then he's just like, "Well, I mean, I might one day be mad about it." I'm just like, "What?" Like,
Archie's face during that whole thing was so like, it was like pain and like anger, but also like, I can't really do anything because like I don't want to be that guy, but also like,
yeah. It was the drama, and he's like fucking doing push-ups afterwards.
Yes,
he's all mad about it.
And Veronica calls him out, which is the best. It's just like, "Oh, what are you do? Flexing your masculinity?" It's like, "Well, did that hurt you?" And he's like, "No, it's fine." He's like, "Oh, okay, you want to fool on?" She's like, "No, I'm tired." It's like, "Oh, excuse me, Archie. All right."
Yeah, right. And she's like, "Are you serious?" Like,
yeah.
So good. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, I have to say. And then, oh my God, dude. So, like, what about Dark Betty Lives, man?
Oof.
Like, hashtag Dark Betty Lives. That shit was like, I do believe I'm getting the vapors up in here. Like, are you kidding me with this?
Like, if Cale was here, you should do a southern accent going, I say I'm working up a sweat.
I tell you what.
My loins are ablazed.
Oh my God.
But when Betty like confesses to Veronica that she's like, remember that night like I wore like the whole getup, and Veronica was like,
I know, I loved that when she was just like,
scandalous.
Stop. Like,
yes, stop, like, but keep going.
It was like so Sex in the City, like,
yeah,
it
was
so funny.
I loved it, man. Like this episode of everything, I was there for it.
Yeah, dude, me too. And it's like, it's a shame because like I definitely feel like Cale is the one who's the easiest to get like negative about the show and be like, I don't even know why I watched the show. I'm done after this season. And I bet you that he would have been so fucking high on this episode.
Yeah, 100%. The first thing was
how
like,
could you not be?
He would have gone, that kiss, buck wild. Love you, Cale.
Or wait, I got one more Cale impression. All right, so Veronica, do you really think this is gonna like fix things? What are you doing? What? Hey, what are you doing? That's my favorite Caleism. Oh man, so that was obviously a ton of fun, and then we kind of like, actually, you know what? We'll save that. Okay. We're gonna put a pin in the lodge. Let's jump over to what was going on with Josie this episode.
Yes, Josie and Kevin.
Yeah. So over the last couple episodes, we got the kind of reveal of the affair that had been going on with Sheriff Keller and I don't know what to call it. Former Mayor McCoy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember her first name. So, but this like, I feel like it finally like went somewhere. Like for how long ago they introduced it, like I feel like it really hasn't made much of an impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, obviously, it led to Mayor McCoy, like, stepping down and, like, Hiram being able to snap up all the land that he did this episode. But I don't know. It just felt like a thing that kind of, like, was on the back burner for a little while. And it finally kind of comes to a head, like all things did this episode, apparently. And, you know, Josie is so mad that she decides to go tell Kevin, right? And then, like, obviously that creates a bunch of drama with, you know, Kevin and his father, you know, because, like, Josie's mother is, like, getting divorced from her father, so, like, everything's above board there, but, like, Kevin's mother is, like, overseas, and she still doesn't know. And there's obviously a lot of pain there, you know, and a lot of, like, hurt. And, you know, I think that compounded with what's going on with Kevin personally, like, makes for a really tough episode for him. You know, I felt for him a lot this episode. Like, obviously, Josie was hurting too, but, you know, the whole stuff with Kevin is just, like, you know, it's the kind of stuff that I feel like, you know, I don't think about that aspect of gay dating, you know? Like, I've never been, you know, a homosexual trying to meet someone. Yeah. And it's like, I can just imagine how much that would hurt, right? Like, he has this connection with someone, he wants a relationship, and, like, this, you know, this guy that he obviously is interested in, is just, like, not able to be honest with himself about who he is, and, you know, and because of that, you know, is, like, just, like, lying about the relationship that they have, and, like, I can only imagine, like, how much that must hurt, you know? And he lies to him too, right? Like, he invites him to go, like, Kevin asks him to go see that movie together, and he's gonna go see it with Midge. He invites him to go with them, and he's like, oh yeah, like, Midge knows all about us, and it's cool. Right. And, like, she very obviously doesn't, you know, like, when they meet up at Pop's, and, like, she's, like, trying to be friendly to Kevin, and, you know, like asks about how they know each other and, like, their relationship. And it's just obvious that she doesn't know. She has no idea that he's gay. Right. And I don't know, that, like, I literally just wrote in my notes, I just wrote poor Kevin with a sad face. You know? Yeah. Like, it was just hard. I felt for him in that moment.
That's like 100%. It must be rough. And I mean, and like you said, like, compounded with everything else that's just going on, all of this was just, I don't know. It was too much, man. It was a lot.
Yeah. And, like, especially when you think about the fact that, like, you know, his support system, like, his two closest friends are Betty and Veronica, and, like, neither of them are around when he like, gets this news either. Like, he doesn't even have anyone to go talk to, you know? Like, he's just on his own. And that sucks. Like, that's really, really hard. But, you know, what's kind of the silver lining there, I guess, is, like, that leads for an opportunity for him and Josie to make a connection, which I thought was really nice. You know, Josie ends up at the movies, like everyone in town, apparently. And,
is that a small town thing?
I mean, I guess, but it's also, like, a thing of, you think about, it's a new movie opening up, and, like, what else is there to do on Friday night at Riverdale? You know? Fair. So, like, I guess if it is, like, hey, I need to get out of the house to avoid my dad or my mom or whatever, like, where else are you going to go, I guess, right?
Right.
But yeah, so, I mean, she apologizes, right? And, like, they decide to go see the movie together, and, like, it was a sweet moment. Like, it seems like, you know, maybe this is an opportunity for them to kind of have, like, you know, maybe a burgeoning friendship. And then that leads them being able to, like, finally confront their parents, you know, and have a conversation about, like, what's going on, and, like, with everyone involved, right? Because, like, they say this is a conversation that's about more than two people, you know? And and it is, right? Like, this is about old marriages ending, a new relationship beginning. Like, these two families are going to have to find some way to come together. And, yeah, it's good to see them all kind of like on the same page, you know?
Again, like hats off to the maturity of this show and dealing with these situations, because that's like I have no context for like divorcing families and affairs and all that stuff. So I mean, I can only imagine that it really sucks, and for them to portray it in, I'm assuming, as healthy a way to sort of deal with that kind of thing. Again, it's just like really a really positive light on this show and the way that it executes its various messages. So yeah, like hats off to it, because I mean, I can't even imagine that. And for them, for the way that Kevin and Josie approach it is like, we get it, and like we want your happiness, but there has to be an understanding that this affects us too, and it's just like a long conversation to be had and to be continued at. And they say it. It's like it's a conversation that's like more than just two people, and it's going to be a long conversation because it's going to be ongoing, because it's something that they're going to deal with like essentially the rest of their life. So
yep, or at least the rest of the relationship,
right?
You know, and I think. Just to build on the point you just made there, and we say this a lot, so I don't want to belabor the point, but I do really think that's the thing that I really do appreciate about the way Riverdale portrays relationships too, is that like I feel like a lot of times the conflict is like it's speedily resolved. Like it feels like it's like, oh, like we got this figured out in one episode to some degree, right? And that's like a television thing, but what I like about it is it rarely feels unearned, you know, like it's mostly like a character is hurt. They experience their hurt, and then they find a way to have a conversation about it where they express how they feel and try to like grow from it. And it's like, that's good. That's a positive way to deal with conflict. And it's great to have a drama that like doesn't revel in the drama too much. You know, and I definitely appreciate that. Like they find a way to make these characters like stay likable, you know, while still allowing them to hurt each other, you know, because like, yeah, like it's shitty that they lied to their kids and that Sheriff Keller's cheating on his wife and everything, but it's also like, you know, you can understand where they're coming from. Like they're still being portrayed as like, you know, we're not vilifying them for this. You know, I guess if you want to call it a moment of weakness or something like that, right? Like they're human, and human beings make mistakes, and we hurt one another, and you know we have to learn and grow from that, and like that's good. Yeah, totally. All right, so we'll get back. We'll rewind here to what's going on at Lodge, and then we'll wrap it up, because I think this was probably the most you know, this was the real shit, right? Like this was where things really escalate. So, like we touched on in the beginning, right? Hiram has this plan to send, you know, Archie and Veronica away for the weekend to protect her, because he's going to be having all these, you know, crime families in town, and this is their safe house, and da-da-da-da-da. He's going to send Andre with them. And, you know, Veronica says, no, like, we don't want a chaperone. You know, he can come and pick us up on Sunday. And he tells Archie that that's not what's going to happen, right? Like, this is going down. He's worried about them. He wants Andre to be nearby. So Archie keeps that secret, but he gets caught, you know, meeting Andre in the woods for some fucking reason, because they're both terrible spies, as Veronica pointed out. But, and that obviously upsets her, right? You know, so her and Betty go into town. She flirts with a guy. He figures out that they're home alone. And, you know what? Actually, real quick, before we get to that, I do want to touch on one more thing, which was the conversation between Jughead and Archie. Like the morning after, you know, like, so the girls go into town, right? Because Veronica's pissed. Yeah. And the two of them are hanging out, and they talk about the kiss and this drama, which like then transitions into them talking about the fact that Betty and Veronica kissed. Oh, and, like, that was the most teenage boy conversation they've ever had, and I loved it. It was so funny. It was the best. It was, it was very fitting. Yeah. For like whatever reason. It was just like, yeah,
I'd probably be thinking the same thing. It's like, wait, what? Yeah.
And it's just like, I liked it because it's like, it was another thing that reminded me of, you know, it was a good balance, right? Of having that humor, because like Jughead gets like very heavy in that conversation for a minute, where he's like, you know, it's incredible that our relationships are so tangled up in one another, and that there isn't as much drama as there could be, and that we do have this amazing, you know, like group that's friends that are couples and all, you know, and anything could blow it up.
Yes.
In an instant, right?
Yeah.
And it's incredible that that's not the case. And that was like a little foreboding. But I liked that there was the juxtaposition of this very normal kind of like, you know, just like, dude, I figured out that our girlfriends made out. It's like, what?
Huh? What? Huh? Tell me a little more. Huh?
When? Why?
Why? When? Where was I?
Exactly. And it was just, you know, it felt very apropos, you know, for them to actually be like teenagers doing teenager shit for once.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that was very cute. So anyway, Veronica, right, she flirts with this guy, and they lets it slip that they're alone at the cabin, basically, and they get robbed, right?
Yep.
So I literally wrote in my notes, I was like, they got robbed. Good job.
Check mark.
So, you know, we don't need to go through a whole play-by-play of the whole scene, right? Like, you obviously, if you're this far and you watch the episode, or you don't care about spoilers, and go watch the episode. So, you know, the whole thing plays out, and Veronica, you know, presses this alarm. The guys go and run. Archie fucking chases after them. And I literally wrote in my notes, I was like, do it, Arch. Unleash the beast. Like, that was when I was like, with my pillow, I was like, do it. Catch him and fucking beat the shit out of him. Like, I want to see this.
Let the hate flow through you.
Exactly. I want to see that pent up fucking
you just go
Punisher
beast mode on him and just like
yeah.
clock him in the face for like a couple times.
Yeah, and just fucking rough him up.
Yeah.
But, and then, you know, Andre, let's say, relieves him of this duty and fucking ices this kid.
Yeah.
Which was like, holy shit. Like, I figured that was what was going to happen when Archie was like, what are you going to do? And he's just like, I'm going to take care of it. And Archie's like walking away, and he's like, I don't know about this.
Archie like hands up like, oh, all right. Hey, oh, yeah, all right. You got, hey, all right. No, it's not my problem. Hey, you go for it.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, and then walking away and the gunshot, and I was like, oh, what's he going to do? And he keeps going, and I was like, ooh, telling.
Well, it was like, that's the whole thing. Like, I agree with you, because it like was a telling moment of like, he freezes for a second, and then he's just like, okay.
Yeah.
But it's also like, what else do you do in that moment? Like,
true, right?
Like, I would be like,
that's fair.
It's like, fuck, but it's also like, just walk back to the house, pretend nothing happened.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I need to process this. So, you know, that was obviously a pretty, like, intense moment, but, like, I thought it was interesting just because, I don't know, like, the fallout of it, right, where, like, he's talking with Hiram again.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised to have that moment again this episode, like when he and Veronica had kind of like, Veronica was like, from now on it's you and me, not you and him. And then like they do still have that conversation, and it's like, not like he can't still have a relationship with him, but I was a little surprised to like have that moment already. But like, I have to say, like, it was interesting to me because like, I feel like Hiram was like, I feel like it's so interesting how much Hiram has like turned around on Archie. Yes. You know, like he's really come around that he like likes him, you know?
I'm still of the opinion that she's just using him to keep his daughter safe, and that he's like sort of molding him into whatever he needs him to be.
And I think that's true. But I also think that, I don't know, and like maybe this is the optimist in me, I do feel like he actually has some genuine affection for him now. Like I think he does see him as like a tool that he's molding to be the boyfriend or husband he wants for his daughter and the person that he can rely on or whatever. But I think he is actually coming to appreciate him actually fulfilling that role. Yeah. You know? Because like when they have that conversation, like he can tell Archie's upset and he's like, you made the right decision. You know, he's like, you did the right thing by telling them to take what they want. Like, there was no other course of action.
Yeah.
Like, he's saying that for Archie's benefit, you know?
Mhm,
and like,
mhm.
and I was like, you know, that's actually kind of nice of him.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, very, very well done shot for me. I thought, like,
Oh my God.
the shadows and like the
With the
fire and the
fire.
reds. It was just like, oof. All
Dude.
right.
And like, especially because there's like that turn, right? Where he's he's like, you made the right decision, and like, you know, like what you did was okay. Like, you did the right thing. Don't be upset with yourself. And then he's just like, what Andre did it bother you?
Yes.
And then, like,
when he said that, I was like, ah.
and it was like, shit, okay. And Archie's like, you know, the one thing I regret is that, like, I hesitated with the black hood, right? And then that close-up shot of Hiram with the whiskey glass, and he's just like, when it comes to protecting yourself or the people you love, never hesitate.
Yes.
And it's just like, shit. Like, goddamn, man. Like, ooh. Their whole, like, relationship is so interesting and strange, and like, I just wonder where it's gonna go, and like where this leads Archie. You know?
Like, this is, yeah, exactly. It's like, what path, to what extent now is Archie going to, what is he gonna do? Like, what won't he do at this point?
Right. Yeah. And like, I think we saw foreshadowing of that this episode.
Yes.
Because Hiram bought the trailer park, right? To like wipe clean the debt and, you know, not evict everyone and whatever, but it's another piece of the South Side he owns now. And everyone but Jughead sees this as a victory, right? And he's being paranoid and da-da-da-da-da. But, like he says, it's a PR move. It's a bargaining chip. He's trying to buy my silence. He's trying to make it look like he's made amends. And then we find out that he's also bought the, what is the paper?
The Register.
The Register, thank you. And then Betty is all of a sudden like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You were, like, Jughead is right. And that, we see a real division there, right? Like, they start slinging shit at each other's, you know, at Hiram. Veronica defends him. Archie backs her up. You know, then they, like, go for the throat, right? Like, fucking Jughead and Betty both, like, definitely insult them, like, on purpose. And then Veronica fires back, you know? And, like, and it gets, like, heated as fuck. And if it wasn't for the breaking and entering, you know, I think that conversation would have ended a lot differently. Yeah. You know, like, if it wasn't like a holy shit, we almost died, thank God we have each other or whatever, like, that was going somewhere bad. And that's going to come up again. Like, these problems didn't go away.
Definitely.
So,
like, and they're just going to go back to Riverdale and, like, literally be in it now.
Yep. And, like, it's going to come to a point where Archie's going to have to choose a side. And it's going to be like, does he pick Veronica or does he pick Jughead and Betty? Yeah. And that's going to be interesting.
Definitely.
So, and just kind of the last thing to touch on, which is, I guess, foreshadowing for next week's show, which was, you know, and we didn't touch on this before. I wanted to save it for the end. But, you know, Jughead takes Betty home, right? And he tells her about, and I thought it was a little interesting that he waited until they were back at her house to tell her this stuff. Yeah, I agree. It's like, really? We were just away for a whole weekend where there was no way your creepy brother was going to hear what I'm about to say. Right. However, so like earlier on in the episode, right, like Chick threatens Jughead by threatening Alice and Betty. Yeah. And like he warns Betty that he got a weird vibe, and like the way that the angle like it makes it seem like Chick maybe overheard. I don't know if that was just a device to make it be like, you know, remember he's looming. You know, right. Like he's just upstairs, right? But like, I don't know. I kind of got the impression he might have been listening. What did you think about that?
I thought it was like the looming thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but and yeah, I agreed about like why you're in the house now, and he can probably hear like, why are you, stop it?
Even outside, like
at the very least.
Like, was there no other opportunity for this? Like, I don't know. Seems a little strange.
Let's walk up to your brother's door and talk very whisperly.
I'm gonna walk you up the stairs and then tell you.
Yeah.
Whatever. So, obviously, the stuff with Chick, we've been sketched out by him from the beginning, and there's nothing good about him. That's for sure. But I don't know. What's your read on where this whole thing's going with him? Like, do you think it's going to come to a violent point?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Again, like the way that it was framed at the beginning of the season was just like this whole season was going to end in a very bloody way, and we already got rid of the Black Hood. So whatever's next is, I definitely think it's Chick. Chick's involved to some extent. Yeah,
I agree. And he obviously already killed someone.
Yes.
So how long is it until he kills someone again?
Yeah.
And I think this was the second time that Jughead, this time it was when he said it to Betty, but the first time he said it was in the narration of the episode where Chick was introduced, of like, sometimes we let the monster into our house,
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So I think that's going to wrap up the conversation here on this episode of the Riverdale Review. If you want to let us know what you thought about this week's episode, you can hit us down in the comments down below if you're on SoundCloud or YouTube or any of the platforms that let you do that, I guess. Or you can hit us up at thecomicspals@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. And, you can have your thoughts right on the air. You can have what you think about Riverdale tossed out for the rest of the kids here at Pops. So, with that, we'll be back next week. Cale will be back. He should be back anyway. And we'll be here in the booth for another episode of Riverdale Review. So, Pops, can we get that check?
Ooh, can I get a box for these curly fries? Thanks.